Whether you collect Greek or Roman coins, you must have come across this symbol more than once. It looks like an upside-down horn. Sometimes it is being carried by someone, other times it is depicted by its own. And at one of its extremities, it looks like it is overflowing with something. And considering coins are very small, sometimes that something looks like a bunch of little dots, dashes, and lines. This is a cornucopia, also known as the Horn of Abundance. It is one of the most common ancient mythological symbols used on coinage. Since a lot of you people likely have at least one coin featuring the cornucopia, how about we take a look at it today? What is the cornucopia? What it represents? And what's the mythology behind it? Also, of course, let's check out some coins featuring the cornucopia. Let's get started. To understand the cornucopia, we need to go all the way back to one of the earliest stories of Greek mythology. Before Zeus was born, Cronus, the god of time, was the ultimate leader of the universe. He was very zealous, very attached to his position as king of everything. And to ensure no one would one day dethrone him, he mercilessly devoured all of his sons and daughters as soon as they were born. When the goddess Rhea gave birth to Zeus, she came up with a plan to trick her husband in order to save her son. She wrapped a massive rock in clothes and gave it to Cronus, so he would eat it, thinking it was the infant Zeus. He fell for the trick, and in the meantime, Rhea fled, some say to the island of Crete, where she left the baby Zeus to be raised in secrecy by the local nymphs and by a goat. Yes, a goat. Amalthea was its name. It would feed and protect the infant Zeus until he grew older and could defend himself. There's a common Roman coin that features Amalthea and baby Zeus, well, Jupiter in this case since it's a Roman coin, that I absolutely love. Check it out, this is such a unique design. This piece, struck under Gallienus for his son Valerian II around 257-258 AD, features the young god, the young Zeus, playing with his hands up in the air in excitement, riding Amalthea. The legends, Iovi Crescenti, translate to the growing Jupiter, not only explaining the scene we're looking at, but also connecting the image of the young Valerian II to that of a young personification of Jupiter that was growing to become an emperor one day. On the obverse, we have this bust of the young Valerian II, with some very simple legends. Valerianus Caesar. So, continuing with the story of Zeus and Amalthea. Zeus turned out to be quite a difficult infant to raise. He grew up quite fast, and even as an infant he was incredibly strong. One day, when playing with Amalthea, he accidentally snapped off one of his caretaker's horns. Amalthea was devastated, and Zeus felt very guilty for hurting his nanny. He had to make up for Amalthea somehow, so he told the goat, "You know, you have nourished me for all these years. You took such good care of me, so I will transform this horn I've broken into an endless source of nourishment. Everything you want, fruits, grains, flowers, anything you need, shall come out in an endless stream from this horn." And so, the cornucopia was born. It became a symbol of prosperity, of abundance, something so rare and unusual in the pre-industrial world. We have difficulty nowadays visualizing the level of material scarcity people from ancient times had to live with. Anytime someone back then saw an abundance of food, like during harvest time, more than enough food for everyone around to eat, it must have looked like a magical thing. And since buying food was one of the things absolutely everyone had to spend money on, rich and poor alike, the cornucopia became a very common symbol on coinage. So now that you know a bit more about the cornucopia, let's look at examples of coins that feature it. Since the cornucopia is almost always depicted on the reverse of coins, this time we're looking at the reverse first and then the obverse. And let's start big with this spectacular coin from Arsinoe II, the wife of Ptolemy II of Egypt. This coin is dated around 270 BC, and as we can see, we have two wonderful cornucopia at the center of the design. Since this coin is massive, it's a decadrachma after all, it allowed the die engravers to properly sculpt in the coin die, in the top of the cornucopia, food and grain overflowing from the cornucopia. In this particular case, we can even see two bundles of grapes dangling from its edge. The cornucopias are tied together with this strip of fabric. This was the royal diadem worn by ancient Greek monarchs to symbolize their power. So in a sense, this shows that the prosperity of the Ptolemaic kingdom was a direct fruit from the king's management. On the legends, we read Arsinoe Philadelphou of Arsinoe, the brother lover, as she married her brother Ptolemy II. Looking at this wonderful obverse, we have the veiled bust of the queen, wearing a lovely diadem. It's insane to think that this wonderful coin was struck at the city of Alexandria right when the famous library and lighthouses of Alexandria were being built. Now for another example of a Greek coin, we have this drachma from Demetrius I of the Seleucid Empire, struck in 150 BC at the city of Antioch. Much smaller coin, but still, there was enough space for the engraver to add a charming little cornucopia at the center of the design. The Seleucids liked putting lots of legends on their reverses. In this case, we have Basileus Demetriou Surthros of King Demetrius the Illustrious. Despite not being a big coin, being made out of silver, this was still a considerable amount of money for people back then, around an entire day's wages for a skilled laborer. The obverse shows how good the ancient Greek die engravers were. A wonderfully well-made portrait of the king in very high relief. It's one of my favorite Greek coins in my collection. Now let's head back to the city of Alexandria, but this time under Roman rule. This tetradrachma, struck under Emperor Gordian III, features the incarnation of the river Nile, reclined in this very relaxed position. And as we can see, he also holds a cornucopia. Egypt was very famous all over the Mediterranean for the fertility of its land, which was flooded by the Nile every year, bringing nutrients to the soil and guaranteeing the region always had a monstrous production of food, despite being next to a blazing hot desert. Since the fertility of this land was entirely dependent on the river Nile, the river god, called Nilus by the Romans, is almost always shown with a cornucopia, as he was known exactly for that, for the fertility of the land and the amount of food it produced. And as we can see in the statue in the Vatican Museum, the cornucopia is right there, right next to the river god. But by far where the cornucopia is most often found is, in my opinion, on Roman imperial coins. This denarius of Emperor Elagabalus, struck around 220 at the main mint of Rome, shows Felicitas, the goddess of happiness. Rome was an empire of cities, and the swollen population of these cities required massive quantities of food to be brought from different parts of Rome's territories. This is why we have Felicitas here, holding not only a cornucopia, but also the caduceus, the symbol of commerce, travel and logistics overall. Because only through a very well-maintained system of roads and trade networks that the Roman Empire managed to sustain such big cities. By that time, Rome must have had nearly 1 million people. That was absolutely mind-boggling for ancient standards. And just to quickly glance at the obverse, we have here the bust of the emperor, wearing the laurel wreath and draperies over his cuirass. The legends, Imperator Antoninus Augustus, spell Elagabalus's official regnal name. The cornucopia can still be seen on modern iconography, although it isn't a very common sight. It is still used as a symbol for the Thanksgiving celebrations, and some contemporary coins still use it on their design, like this 8 reales coin from 19th century Colombia, where we can see 2 cornucopias flanking a fasces. We can also find parts of the word absorbed into modern language. The word cornucopia is an amalgamation of 2 Latin words, cornu, horn, and copiae, abundance. Words like copious in English mean something in abundance. So, for example, next time you look at your weather forecast, keep an eye out for expressions such as copious amounts of rain, like the one I'm just putting on screen. It means a lot of rain, and you now know where the word comes from. So, next time you see one of these little horns on one of your ancient coins, you know exactly what it means, the history behind its symbolism, and this might help you understand a bit better some of your collection. Have you got a coin featuring the Cornucopia? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this little episode. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.